Hi and welcome to another craft session with me, Bev. Today I thought we'd look at making some cyanotypes. It is a little bit dark in my house because I'm going to be painting my paper with some chemicals that are UV sensitive in a moment. So cyanotypes are a method of printing. They used to use it in the 1800s to make reprints of things, but also botanists used this method to record flowers and plants and whatnot. So I have my two chemicals here. So you need some ferric ammonium citrate and also some potassium ferrocyanide. I got these in weighed out packs, and they were just from eBay. You can get them in fancy little bottles for you to mix up, and you can also get the paper pre-coated as well. But I'm going to coat my own paper today. So once you've mixed your solutions, then what you're going to need to do is to paint them onto your paper. Now this is quite thick watercolour paper that I've got here. You'll need something thick because you are going to coat it with a liquid, and if it's too thin then your paper ends up rippling. Also you don't want to sort of be painting and then for the paper to rip when it's moist. So I'm going to go ahead now and mix my chemicals, and then I'm going to paint my paper in a subdued light, and then I'm going to need to let my paper dry in a dark place. Once it's dried, then you can start playing around with your organic matter or whatever you want to print with. I think I'm going to choose some feathers and some flowers and things like that, but you could use any household item, anything that you've got at home. Obviously things that are thinner, such as leaves and flowers, you'll get more light coming through that organic matter, whereas if you use something a bit more solid like a pair of scissors, then you're going to have a really sort of defined line than where those have been. I've got my mixed chemical here in this bowl, so I've mixed the amounts required with water, and then those two chemicals are mixed together. So they're mixed now, and I'm just going to coat my paper. So you could just coat it with a bit of a square. I'm going to try some other shapes on different papers as well. You can coat right to the edge of the paper or just sections. I'm going to do some stripes on this one. So my paper has been painted now with the chemicals. The reason I've sort of done that to get it out of the way is because you have to let it sit for an hour or so in a dark cupboard. So now I've got the opportunity then to talk to you about what we're going to do next. When you put your particularly organic matter, something that's light, onto the paper, and you want to expose it outside, then there always is the possibility of the wind blowing things off. Now this might look quite nice if you've had something on there and you've moved it around a little bit. It can create a bit of a ghost image. But if you don't want that to happen, if you want more of a solid shape, then you'll need to sandwich your paper between either a piece of Perspex or a piece of glass. Now, I guess this isn't something that you would usually have around the house, unless you have some old picture frames that you don't have anything in anymore. So this is the glass that I've taken out of the picture frame, and this is the back of the picture frame. So what I'll do then with my images, once I've got all my organic matter on, is to sandwich the image then between these two. Now if it's a piece of glass, it'll probably stay there quite well, but you could use pegs to keep this flat down so that nothing moves. It's probably a good idea if you've got children around. And this, again, is a picture frame that I've deconstructed. This picture frame's got acrylic on. So if you've got some foliage, organic matter that is a bit thick, then you'll have a bit more give with the plastic for those ones. I know I plan on using some flowers that are quite big, so I'll probably sandwich them between the perspex and the board. And then with the flatter organic matter, the smaller bits, I can use the glass then. So there are different techniques that you can use with the cyanotype printing. I've seen people use bicarbonate of soda, salt, vinegar, and they all create different effects then on your final image. You'll see different colours come through there, you'll get different shapes. I also saw somebody wrapping up their organic matter into cling film and then popping that down on their board in between their perspex sheet, and that created a quite nice sort of fluid, ghostly image. Also, like I say, if you want to, when we expose in the sunlight, you'll have to leave it out there, probably depending on how much sunlight you've got, for about half an hour. And during that time, you don't have to leave your organic matter in the same place. You could swap it over every 10 minutes, and then you'll sort of get some ghostly images coming through then. This process is all about experimenting, and nothing's right with it. Just go with whatever you feel like you want to do. As this process was originally used for creating copies of things, you could print pictures onto clear acetate sheets. You could print some fonts onto there. There's lots of different things that you could do, but as long as you can sandwich it between your piece of acetate or glass and your paper that you've got ready, then yeah, just feel free to experiment and have a go with it. Okay, so my paper has been drying in my cupboards around my house. You need to just dry them in a dark place, because as soon as you emit UV light to the paper, it will sensitise it and you'll start the printing process, which is not what you want to do just yet. So what you want to do is try and pick sort of some good shapes, I guess, with your leaves. Things like this might not look as interesting, although they equally are as pretty. I've got some feathers as well, various different shapes and sizes. I've also picked a giant poppy. These can squish down quite easily, so I'll be able to sandwich it between my paper and my perspex. So yeah, so I'm just going to have a go, really, at arranging in different ways on my papers that are painted in different ways as well with the chemicals. Once you've got your papers out, it is important to remember that as soon as the sunlight starts hitting it, it's going to start its magic. So I'm going to pop my sheets of paper on here. You can see I've done different brush strokes and filling in with the two different bits. And then I'm just going to arrange my foliage on there. So your lighter areas are going to be where you've got your organic matter on the paper. And then the darker areas are going to be where you don't have anything on there. So I'm just going to go ahead here and arrange as preferred. Just going to add a few different bits. Let's try and create a bit of a sunshine sort of effect on the edge here with the feathers. And get a couple more of these lovely poppies on here. So again, you don't have to use organic matter. You could go out and collect other bits of leaves and whatnot. So I've got this on there now, and then I just put my Perspex over the top. I'm just going to lightly squeeze that poppy because it is quite big and thick. And then I'm just going to clip the board then with some pegs. So I've just used my household lime pegs. And then what you want to do is leave this out in the sun preferably. It's really sunny today, so we've got the weather on our side. But if it's not sunny, you can use a UV lamp for this if you've got any UV lamps. So I'm going to go and leave this out in the sun probably for about half an hour. The longer you leave it, the more of the rays are going to come through the flowers, the more texture that you're going to get, especially in the denser areas of your foliage. So I'll come back to you once I've done that. Oh, I didn't record that. Okay, so my prints have been out in the sunshine now for about half an hour, maybe a bit longer. I've decided at this point that I am now going to rinse them off. So I'll rinse them in the washing up bowl, and I'll just rub them gently. I don't want to remove any of the paper away, but I want to try and get some of the chemicals away. And then once I've done that, I'll leave them under running water then for a few minutes just to get the remainder of the chemicals off. Okay, so I have now created a few prints. As they dry, they'll go darker. So when you first get them out of the water, they'll sort of be a little bit of a lighter blue. And then as they dry, they get to this lovely sort of dark tone here that you can see. So I don't know if you can see, but I've got these lovely ghostly images of some feathers here. They're obviously a different density to the foliage that I've used on here, so that's quite interesting. You can see here that we've got some really good textures here in the poppy. Possibly if I'd have left it for longer, then light would have gotten through and we would have got some more textures going on there. I really like the stalk down here, how we've got the sort of the lighter spots and the darker spots. And then this one wasn't pressed so flat down onto the paper, so I don't know if you can see, but you've got these sort of feathery, ghostly areas here on the edges of the leaves, which I really like. This was some lemon that I chopped up into slices, and then I left it in the oven after I'd used it so that they dehydrated a little bit and dried out. This one's only just come out of the water, so I expect for these colours to change a little bit and get a bit darker. I quite like that one, especially sort of in the circle that I painted on with the cyanotype. This is some feathers. These were a bit denser with these feathers than the other ones that I used, so you can see that the sunlight hasn't quite gotten through here, but I like sort of these patches, these areas here where the sun's really gotten through, that you can definitely see the texture of the feather. And this one here, I used some vinegar on here and sprinkled a little bit of salt on it as well. It's created some sort of lighter areas. So just having a bit of a play around really there. This one was also left out in the sun a little bit longer than these ones, so I expect that these colours are going to change. This one's still a bit wet. And I've got some more going on outside, and I think really it's just about experimenting with these and having a bit of fun. I have been writing down how much time I've left things in the full sun for. And then I've got a bit of a gauge then as to whether I'm leaving them out for long enough or not. And I'm just going to keep on going for it. Apparently you can prepare fabric and create prints on fabric as well, so I'm going to have a go at that possibly somewhere along the path. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope you have fun with it. And if you've got any images that you've created, then we'd love to see them. So please do post them to us at Inkwell, either on Facebook or on the website. All right, take care. We'll see you soon.